If you're currently living in Australia, then you are probably more than well aware of the stock issues that are surrounding medications like Ozempic and other GLP-1 analogues, Mounjaro for example. And I've talked about these medications before. They're very effective, they're very good at reducing blood sugar levels, and of course there are people that are also finding success in terms of weight management. But the issue is it's been very hard to get a stable supply of the medication, which means that most people haven't been able to use them properly or use them without getting interrupted, which means they're not getting the best results possible. And trust me, I'm a pharmacist, it is just as frustrating for us as it is for the patients. Neither one of us can seem to get stable supply. But very recently we were made aware that Wegovy, which is another type of GLP-1 analog, was going to be available in Australia in early August. So hopefully by the time this video is up and by the time you're watching it, it actually has already arrived or is available. Now, Wegovy isn't a brand new medication. It's not a brand new GLP-1 analog. It's been available in America for quite some time now, and it is marketed purely for people needing weight management who have obesity. Unlike Ozempic, which was pretty much for type 2 diabetes. Will this solve the stock shortages? Probably not, and definitely not in the short term. But what this does give is an alternative for people that want to use Ozempic for weight management. But as you will soon find out, the price might put a few people off of that. So today I will be talking about what Wegovy is, how it's different to Ozempic, whether or not it is more effective than Ozempic, and who will be able to get access to it in Australia. And it's been a while since I've talked about GLP-1 analogs, so perfect timing to make another video on it. So Wegovy, as I said before, contains the exact same medication as Ozempic. Ozempic contains semaglutide and Wegovy also contains semaglutide. They work in exactly the same way. They are the exact same medication. There are only two differences, and that is one, the branding, and two, the dose. So Ozempic pens, they go up to 1 milligram as their maximum dose. And Wegovy, those pens, they go all the way up to a dose of 2.4 milligrams once a week. Now, just like with Ozempic, you do tend to start on a lower dose on the Wegovy, and that's purely because of the main side effect associated with these medications, which is nausea. So most people, you start off low and you work your way up to that maximum dose just to see how your body tolerates it and to minimize that nausea. Because if you started right on that high dose, chances are you're going to get debilitating nausea and you're not going to stick with the medication. But yeah, I just want to point out that the main difference between these medications is their dose. So why does Wegovy have a higher dose? Well, Novo Nordisk, which is the company that makes both of these products, so both Ozempic and Wegovy, they have stated that a dose of 2.4 milligrams of semaglutide once a week is the most effective dose for achieving weight loss on these medicines. So naturally, I had to investigate to make sure that this was true. So a few studies have been done on the GLP-1 analogs in general, but the most important studies to pay attention to for this video are called the STEP trials. Now, these were a series of clinical trials that were done purely to investigate the weight loss effects of semaglutide, which is the medication that is found in both Ozempic and Wegovy. Now, the STEP trials, they consisted of a series of trials, but one study in particular compared the 2.4 milligram of semaglutide per week, which is Wegovy, to 1 milligram of semaglutide per week, which is your Ozempic. And so this study essentially concluded that the 2.4 milligram per week of semaglutide resulted in more significant weight loss compared to 1 milligram per week. But let's just look a little closely at the results. When you look at the averages, those taking the 2.4 milligram per week dose, they lost on average about 9.6% of their starting weight. And compare that to those taking the 1 milligram dose per week, they lost about 7% of their starting weight. So it's not exactly a huge difference, but more people lost more weight in this study when they were taking the 2.4 milligram per week dose. So yes, this study does show that Wegovy is more effective than Ozempic when it comes to weight loss. That's only if you take the maximum dose of the Wegovy. This is just one study though, and these medications are very new, so more studies keep coming out all the time, and it's just something to keep an eye on. Now, if you wanted a little bit more detail and information on how exactly these medications work, I have spoken in the past about how the GLP-1 analogues work, so just click here somewhere if you want to go watch those videos. So let's move on then to who can actually access Wegovy in Australia, because when it came to Ozempic, because there were all these stock shortages going on and it was very difficult to get a hold of, Ozempic was reserved specifically for people with type 2 diabetes, and the government actually subsidized Ozempic for those with type 2 diabetes. So if you fit the criteria, your doctor could write you a prescription essentially, and it would be at a reduced cost. Anyone that wanted to use Ozempic for weight management, if they didn't have type 2 diabetes, it was private and it was quite expensive to get. And that was if they could get it in the first place. Now, Wegovy isn't going to be subsidized by the government, so it will be privately accessed, meaning you will have to pay full cost for the medication. But you can get it technically prescribed for you if you have obesity or you are overweight and are experiencing at least one chronic health condition. So that might be high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol. So if you fall into those categories and your doctor does think it is appropriate medication for you, then you will be able to access it if you are willing to pay the cost. And the thing is, Wegovy is not cheap at all. Novo Nordisk have pretty much advised that the higher dose pen of Wegovy, the 2.4 milligram dose per week, that is going to cost around $460 a month. Now that is at the moment the most expensive of all the GLP-1 analogues that are currently available in Australia. The lower doses do cost less, but eventually everyone will ideally be aiming to hit that higher dose pen, and even still those lower doses are still in the hundreds of dollars. These medications just aren't cheap. To compare, if someone was able to use Ozempic privately, they were paying about $160 a month. And so I think a lot of people right now are kind of scratching their heads wondering why there is such a huge difference between the two products when it comes to cost. And I'll be honest, I'm confused on a couple of things with this situation. The first is the fact that Ozempic is still very hard for us to get access to. We still have a stock shortage of Ozempic. Yet all of a sudden Wegovy is widely available and there's no stock shortage on that, but they have the exact same medication. It just seems a little strange to me that Novo Nordisk, the company that makes both of these products, has no stock of Ozempic but ample supply of the medication that costs a lot more. And we can't ignore the fact that this is a medication that is purely marketed for chronic weight management, yet it is so much more expensive than Ozempic. It will cost someone almost double for them to use Wegovy compared to Ozempic. This just seems like putting a tax on the people that need to use this medication to lose weight, and that doesn't seem fair. Now, of course, Wegovy, it isn't going to be the only option for you. There are other options for people needing access to these medications for weight management reasons. We have other GLP-1 analogues. Mounjaro is one that I have mentioned before. That's available in Australia, and that one gives very effective results too. We also have Saxenda, which is another GLP-1 analog that's available in Australia as well, and that one is marketed more so for weight loss. But all of these are private, meaning they are all expensive, and all of them will cost you a few hundred a month. Now, these are medications needed for chronic conditions. Obesity is a chronic condition, which means that they are long-term medications. They're not something that you can take for a week, a month, a few months. They're very, very long-term. And at this stage, I don't know how many people are going to be able to afford $300, $400, $500 a month to use these medications, especially with the cost of living crisis that is going on worldwide. But regardless, that just is where we're at the moment. It is still an alternative, and we'll see in a few months' time whether this does fix stock issues in terms of Ozempic. And the thing is, who's to say that Wegovy isn't going to go out of stock either? We'll just have to keep an eye on it, because the biggest annoyance with this medication is the fact that people can't get stable supply of it. There's no point in someone using it for a month and then going off it for a couple of months and then starting it again. That's not good therapy, and that's not going to give them the best results. So Wegovy, if people are going to be paying that much money for it, it better be stable supply. Otherwise, again, that money is not being used to the best of its ability because they can't use it consistently. So I'm hoping Wegovy, even if it's expensive but it stays in stock, that's maybe one benefit. I would love to hear anyone's thoughts on the entire situation in general. Now, with these medications, they are good. They have been shown to be effective with weight loss, but I always like to point out, if you're using them or you're using anything that's trying to speed up weight loss, make sure you are changing some lifestyle measures to prevent muscle loss, because fat loss and weight loss, they're two different things. And if you are losing muscle, that's not in your best interests for your future health. So these medications, they can result in muscle loss if you aren't using them correctly, or you aren't adjusting your lifestyle correctly. And that would be things like making sure you are increasing the protein that you are eating, and also making sure you are doing resistance and weight-bearing exercises. I've mentioned this in a video before, but I will be doing a video coming up that sort of targets what you should be changing if you are using GLP-1 analogs. So keep an eye out for that. I will see you in the next video, and until then, keep playing the long game.